Welcome to another episode of the Follow D Money podcast. I'm your host, Stretch. And today I have a friend in the community of podcasting. I have the host of the Conversation Piece podcast. He is also one of the hosts on the Janchi podcast. He is a fine representative of the Korean American community here in Indianapolis. He is an adoptee who represents adoptees all over this community. And I am honored. I am really pleased to have Patrick Armstrong on my show today. Welcome, Patrick.
Thank you, Stress.
I forgot to say this too.
Okay.
People always compliment me on my voice. But when this man talks, my voice sounds like shit. So,
okay.
So we're going to continue this interview. Welcome to the Follow D Money podcast.
Thank you. I am very excited and honored to be on the Follow D Money podcast sitting next to you. You have a great voice, so don't sell yourself short.
I mean, I know I have a great voice, but but I am also aware of your voice, which...
It's not, your voice does not turn to shit. It is two great domineering voices taking over the space.
That is good.
Two men of color taking up the space.
Two men of color. Also, one of the main reasons why I have you on here is that you are also an outspoken person about how you feel about certain subjects. And I am very, I'm proud of that. I'm proud of
Thanks.
that for you. And your history, your past, being adopted, kind of brought you to where you are, like, because you had a journey to get to where you are and you had to start somewhere.
For sure.
My first question for you would be can you explain to everyone your journey being adopted? You were adopted by white parents, of course, right?
Yep.
And you had to find an identity.
Yeah.
You know, and being Asian in a white community, raised by white people, not many people can empathize with that. Not many people can relate. So please try to paint a picture for us.
Well, I appreciate it. Yeah, so I was adopted from Korea in 1990 by white parents who lived in Rensselaer, Indiana. We're in Indianapolis. That's about an hour and a half north of here on 65. And you said, like, I had to find an identity. I think it was struggle to find. And the reason is that for me, I think the general narrative of adoption is that it works out for everybody.
Yeah.
And I think when you look at my story from the outside without any context, it kind of fits that narrative. I did have a good relationship, still do, with my parents and my family. I had friends that played sports. I did a lot of stuff, and feel like lived a pretty quote unquote all-American childhood.
Yep.
But what you don't see and what I didn't really realize I was doing at the time was like suppressing that Asian and Korean parts of myself, simply because there were no mirrors, like racial mirrors, for me there in Rensselaer. And there also, it wasn't that it was like, it was bad to be Asian, but just the general kind of, we lived in like a colorblind way. So like, we don't see race, but in the worst possible ways. So like we make the jokes and we're clearly leaning into stereotypes and stuff that are just not good. And for me, like seeing that and then kind of coming up in that community and in that environment, like I internalized a lot of that.
Yep.
So I really wanted to be white. And so in terms of finding identity or struggling to find one, that's what I was trying to do, was like I was rejecting part of my identity that was really important and then trying to embrace one that was much less important, but that I had placed at the pinnacle, the peak of importance. And so... Did a lot of that have to do with wanting to be accepted? For sure. Yeah. A lot of wanting to be accepted. I think that's why I played sports. I was a three-sport athlete, and tried to, as hard as possible, to fit in with the friends that I made. And I feel like if I had friends, I did everything possible to cling to them. Up until even like 4 years ago, like recently, just starting to kind of break those cycles and be like, oh, you know, I don't have to continue to step into relationships that might not serve me. Yeah. So,
one thing that you said you talked about not seeing color.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't realize that they hide their racism by not seeing color.
For sure.
Because you don't embrace the culture when you don't see color.
Right.
You know, and how did you navigate that kind of mentality being in that situation as a young kid? Because you also said that you wanted to be accepted, which as a kid, it's hard to want to be different.
Yeah.
It's hard. Because
sure.
they don't understand how cool being different is.
Right.
Not always. Because you have those
sure.
Those outliers, the kids that are different and accept their difference and want to be cool in that way.
Yeah.
But for the most part, as a child, you just want to be accepted. You want to be like everybody else.
100%.
So how did you navigate that with family, friends, your whole situation? Because you probably didn't have a large Asian community where you grew up.
Definitely not.
Rensselaer?
Yeah, Rensselaer. Yeah. So definitely hard lean away from the things that made me different. And the only way that I embraced them was to embrace them in like a stereotypical way. So like being like, oh yeah. Or honestly, it was kind of like rejecting the stereotype. Like, I'm not good at math. Like, I am a good driver. So like accepting those things, but being the opposite and being like, that's what makes me not Asian.
Dang.
You know, doing things that would make me be completely different or to set me apart. Yeah. And then being told by my friends, especially as we got into like our teenage years that, you know, well, you're not really Asian. It's like, I don't really see you as Asian, or like, you're the whitest Asian I know. Like all of those things, like you hear that over and over and over again. It's like, well, okay, that's what I think too. Yeah. Because why would I not think that?
Yeah.
And I mean, even in family too, like that's where I think the idea of we don't see color got rooted. And again, I think it's out of protection. Like my parents and a lot of adoptive parents are told prior to adopting, especially in the 90s and before, that like assimilation and raising your kids to not see color, to raise them as essentially white is the way to go and it'll be fine. Wow. And so like, that's one of those things that kind of undergirds the narrative of adoption. That's, you know, wholly positive. It's all love. Yep. Like, and that's, you know, where my parents were operating from. Yep. So that is like, it was foundational because that's what we would navigate at home. And so like they were making those jokes too. And we've had these conversations, so they're not hearing nothing new, right. But it's like, how else do you navigate the world if that's all that you see? Yeah. And so that became so rooted in me, that rejection of my own identity and like this desire to be anything but, to be literally the antithesis, which is white, became so rooted in my foundation. That's how I would navigate college. That's how I would continue to navigate adulthood, even though I would start to become more progressive. I think that because of that foundation of rejection, like I really always did not want to be associated with anything Asian. Oh, okay. And I always was leaning away from my own identity.
Dang. I find in my life that when the family around me that is white, they find ways to make, let's say, myself or my children feel comfortable.
Sure.
What they don't understand is the way that you do that is embracing my culture.
Exactly.
Not through my education, but by your own.
Exactly.
You know, and a lot of people don't really understand that. You can be the nicest person in the world. You can be very accepting. You can be loving towards the people in your family. But if you only talk about things that you're comfortable with, or you express and have conversations about things that you feel comfortable with and you are educated on, and you don't go out and educate yourself on those different cultures and the family members that you have that are not like you, then you are really just perpetrating a kind of racist undertone.
100%. Well, white people have never had the onus on them to go out and do that work in the first place.
Right.
And so for a lot of people, it is nonchalant to just be like, oh yeah, there's something wrong with this person, or like or that's so interesting, or oh, you're so articulate, or something, because it fits into their definition of what you should be, as opposed to, oh, I need to reframe or redefine that definition for myself.
Right. It seems to me that they want to be comfortable. They want to feel comfortable.
Always.
And they want me to assimilate.
Yes. 100%.
Right?
I don't know your family, so I don't want to speak for them.
I'm not talking about. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about in general.
Yeah, 100% general.
They want.
It's 100%. It's all.
They want minorities to assimilate.
About comfort. It's about comfort, power, and privilege.
Yes, yes. And keeping them as strong as possible. All three of those.
100%.
Right. So in your journey, you got older and you started to find yourself as an Asian American man. And at what point did you find the power in that? At what age did you say, you know what, this is me. I am really not that, and I appreciate that. Like coming up and everything they did for me, but I am different, and I want to embrace this.
Yeah, so I'm 34 at the time of this recording. I really didn't fully embrace that until I was 32. So this is only 2 years into that embracing. 4 years into this journey of reclamation, of reclaiming my identity, and to really start unpacking what does it mean to be Asian, what does it mean to be adopted, what does it mean to have existed only in white spaces and been uncomfortable in spaces where everybody else looks like me. What does that mean?
Right.
And like, what does it mean to like reckon with something like that? Before then, it was really, again, I was becoming more and more progressive as I got older, but still so uncomfortable with just being Asian. There was no wanting to accept it. It was kind of like forced upon me, but only because a lot of things were happening that just kind of put me into a position of like coming to consciousness about all of this stuff. And so in June of 2020, my wife and I had just moved back from Chicago in May, and we were watching a movie on the couch called Always Be My Maybe. It's an Asian American rom-com.
I love that movie.
Randall Park, Ali Wong, hilarious movie.
I love that movie.
But we were just like, I think we've been watching Fresh Off the Boat, the TV show, and that's why we started to watch this movie. But anyways, at the time, pandemic had really just like kicked in. Lockdowns were like full go. We were seeing a lot of state publicized violence against Black people, like Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd. And then like the rhetoric around the pandemic was starting to skew very anti-Asian. And so we were starting to seeing violence against Asian people, like old folks being set on fire and being just knocked out and killed in the street, and like starting to see a lot of this stuff. And then my wife and I had also been talking about, what's it look like to our family, to start a family, to have kids. So we're watching this movie, and like early on, there's a scene where it's a flashback and they're like cooking or something. And I don't know what happened about that scene, but that moment, coupled with all of this other stuff happening, triggered a thought in my head for the first time that I'd never had, which was, I don't know how to be Asian. And I looked at my wife and I was like, how am I going to teach our kids to navigate the world as Asian when I don't know how to do that? It's the first time I ever had that thought. The first time I'd ever been like, maybe it's wrong the way I've navigated and lived my life so far. And that sent me on the path. The very next day, I got on my podcast player and typed in Asian American. I found a show, listened to an episode. The guest on that episode said, reach out if you're ever interested. So I sent him an email. I think 2 days later, he responded, sent me a study called Too White to Be Korean, Too Korean to Be White, about 12 Korean adoptees who grew up in the Midwest, like me, and then also connected me to the host of the show that I had listened to, who eventually put me together with 2 other Korean adoptees, which is how I got in podcasting. But like all of that context is necessary to get me to 2022, when I was hosting an Asian American night market in New York City. And I just had a feeling. I felt a bunch of shame and guilt and stuff leave my body in the middle of like giving the introduction. And I was like, for the first time, I felt like, this is who I am. Like as an Asian American person, like as this version of an Asian American person, as an adopted person, like, and I embrace this.
Damn, that's beautiful, man.
Sorry, that was a super long-winded way to get all that
you got
in,
to it,
Yeah.
and it makes complete sense. And what's funny is like, okay, so everybody has a journey, right? And like you and I had these parallel kind of journeys to where we ended up meeting. We intersected somewhere, and we got there different ways, of course. But in my journey, I didn't deal with white people until a later age in life. You dealt with white people all your life, and then you found yourself. And then it's like, for me, I had this kind of image of how white people were until I met different white people.
Sure.
You know, and then so you probably are kind of similar in that fact to where you, when you get into the kind of creative space, you start to see a different mindset from that community,
For sure.
in my opinion.
For sure.
I think that people with an artistic view have a different view of the world.
Yeah.
Usually.
Yeah.
It's not something that is, it's not something that's drawn up for them. They create their own thoughts. And that brought you to your journey now, working in the community, starting podcasts, and doing everything that you do now, which is highly commendable, because your journey, one, to me, is commendable in itself.
Thanks.
Being raised by a family who was kind enough and had the heart and the love to raise a child that didn't look like them, came from a different background, but took care of you and raised you that way, that is highly commendable. I love it. And then also watching you on your journey to find your culture and things like that, that's highly commendable. What I want to know now is what kind of strength can you describe, like what was going in your head when you were like, I'm going to have to talk about this for others who are doing the things that I'm doing? You came up with the John Shee concept. And I think you talk about adoption. Mm-hmm. You have food. It's like three
we have like
people.
A little food segment at the end of every show.
And it's a dope concept, but it's also very welcoming to that community. So explain to everybody what that is.
Yeah. So like I said, I went on to a show. That show was called Dear Asian Americans. And the host of that show, who invited me to come on as a guest, said, you are going to hear, because I was listening to the show at the time, 2 episodes that I did with 2 other Korean adoptees. And he's like, I think you guys should do a show together. So granted, this is in like July of 2020, height of the pandemic. Never met these people before. I'm like, well, okay, maybe be interested. So he sets it up and we have a meeting. I was working at a vet's office in Indy in Irvington at the call center at the time. So I was taking meetings for other stuff at lunch in my car. And I remember we all got on a meeting and I was just like, we talked about the potentially doing a show. And I left the meeting. I was just like, man, that was super awkward. This is not going to happen. But for whatever reason, we kept meeting and I decided to continue to go back. Like something was just drawing me to whatever this was. And we kept talking about it. And eventually we launched the show in September. And so Janchi in Korean means to feast or to celebrate. Yep. And so we utilize that concept because in Korean culture, and actually a lot of communities of the global majority, a lot of other cultures besides American culture, it's like very common to feast and to have dinner and to do things in community, not just your core like 4 family people, but like with everybody like in the block. Yep. And so we take that concept into the show by having a food or a snack item at the end of every episode. And at the end of the day, we wanted to talk about what it meant to be 3 people with the same experience of being Korean, male, and adopted, but also how those things were very different. And through the show, which we started as a weekly thing, that's where I really fell in love and learned the power and privilege of storytelling. Because not only was I able to start expressing my story, and I'm a talker and a rambler, as I'm sure people are finding out right now, but I was able to really be on the receiving end of other people's stories and like listen in a way that I don't think I'd ever been forced to before. And through that, seeing like people be so vulnerable and just say like the deepest, darkest parts of their lives as they're like relating to being Korean and adopted was it just eye-opening. And like from that moment, I knew, like through those moments of conversation, I knew that this was work that I needed to be involved in. Whether it was like directly rooted in adoption or in Asian American work, or whether it would extend beyond that. And I think through events in life like the Atlanta spa shootings in March of 2022, I think, or 2021, I can't remember. Like stuff like that led me towards more social justice focused work, or just learning about things like, or reading books like The New Jim Crow, which then learning about like intersectional work and learning about like, how a lot of community struggle is tied up in anti-Blackness and like Black liberation. And so, yeah, that's like, the strength came, honestly, to answer your question, the strength came from hearing other people share in real time what it meant to share their story for the first time.
Nice.
And so like the way I like to talk about it is like, for adoptees, we're trying to change a narrative, which is really hard because the narrative is an intangible thing. But for us, we've not ever been the authors of our own stories for a long time. And so like when we come to consciousness, or when we have moments of rupture where we start to question like these realities and we start to explore what it means for us to do this, then we become the authors and we pick up the pen for the very first time. And so for a lot of people that can be really, really difficult. And for me, I got really lucky to start a show where I had to show up every week and not only share my story, but then hear everybody else that we were having on share theirs. And to not only just be like, oh, that's interesting as in furtherance of my story, but how does it relate? How do all of our things intersect and form this community?
As you're learning about Asian history, you had to have started to be real proud, because it's such a rich history.
For sure.
You had to. I just want to know, when you start to learn about the injustices and inequality in this country, is that part of the reason why you started Conversation Peace Podcast? Because you I just look at your guests and I look at the conversations that you have, and it looks like you really talk about community and change and things affecting the world. So I don't think without that education and learning about the history of your people, because of how it intertwines with other minorities, that could even be a thing if you didn't do that.
I mean, it definitely plays, I think, a significant role. I think when I started Conversation Piece, I really wanted to do something I had full creative control over. That was the biggest reason. But like I said,
because you started it after being a part of one.
After being part of the John T Show, which was always a 4-person thing.
And we
for
both know
time.
Having creative control is nice.
It is very nice. And so that's why. That's why. So that's why the original reason why I started Conversation Piece. And I think ever since, especially the spa shootings in Atlanta, like that was the moment that I really like pushed me towards being more socially justice minded, or at least wanting to like actually understand what that means and not be performative about it. Not just like post the black square or whatever the fuck it is. Like, like actually be about it. And step like to that actual beat. And so it's always undergirding kind of everything that I do, I think. But no, the original reason was because I was like, I just want to do something that I can do for myself. But yeah, it's always there now. And especially the way that Conversation Piece is going now, and like the Indianapolis focus, for sure. Like that's a big part of it.
Dope. One thing I was gonna say, like, so the hashtag, it was hashtag Stop Asian Hate. And it was around the time when all hashtags were just doing their thing, right? You know what I mean? And I'm like, who can't get behind Stop Asian Hate? Like, that's something
a lot of Asian people, you'd be surprised.
We can all get behind that. But that's okay. So the Asian community, this is a question I'm going to ask you because you're Asian and you're here.
Sure.
So the model minority.
You
know, the meaning behind that, and I'm going to tell you what I think it means, is that Asians do not like to cause waves.
Oh, interesting.
Like that's how I look at it. Okay. So the model minority, meaning that they are more accepting of the rules and regulations and nuances of what their position is in this country. So I always thought that white people labeled them that because they didn't cause a stir like black people did. But I really, really was asking that because I want to know from an Asian, what is the model minority mean to you?
Sure. So I don't know if I'm the best. And again, I don't speak for all Asian people.
No, of course not.
And I'm going to give my definition of what I think the model minority myth is. And I think that yours is really interesting because I think that to me, the model minority myth is simply like using imagined power structures of power to pit one minority community against another.
Yep.
So it doesn't necessarily have to be any one specific, but I think specifically the model minority myth was developed to pit black people against Asian folks. Right. I think a lot of it came about like in the 90s, like when the riots were going on. Yeah. I think a lot of that came to the fore because a lot of that was happening in Koreatown. And I know that I think a lot of it had to do with like gentrification of Asian families moving into black communities,
starting businesses.
Whether they were, exactly. And so this was then used by people in positions of power to position these two communities against each other. And I think that it has then been used against multiple communities because at the end of the day, it sets up one person or one community as the model,
right?
Puts them up on the pedestal and it says everybody else is down here. At the end of the day, the model minority myth was quote unquote established the moment that white folks decided that black people were on the lowest end of the totem pole.
True.
Or I shouldn't have even said that. Terrible metaphor. I apologize.
Just the
lowest. Yeah,
that's the metaphor.
Like black was the worst and white was the best.
Correct.
As soon as that scale had been set up, as soon as race was created as a construct, like that's what happened.
Yep.
And so truly the model minority are white folks because they are the peak. But they exist outside of this system.
Right.
Because
they don't consider themselves a minority.
Exactly.
But
because even though they created the construct of race, for some reason they exist outside of it. Mm-hmm. Like the math don't math there.
Right.
But like to me, the model minority myth is simply just that. It's just the pitting of two communities against each other and labeling one as better and one as worse.
That makes
a lot
of sense.
For all of history, before a certain period of history, it really was Asian people versus black people.
Yeah.
And it was black people, why can't you be like the Asian people? To your definition, why can't you be more demure, more passive, more accepting of your position? Why don't you work hard and be quiet about it, show up on time and stay late, don't ask for more, like all of those things.
Yeah.
And again, stereotypes, not indicative of the majority of Asian people.
Right.
And only stereotypes of probably a specific kind of Asian person, East Asian, most likely Chinese. And so when you think about it, like Asia is made up of over 50 countries. That is one person that is now representative of over 50 countries, which have cultures and religions and other things that are then broken down, within each of those countries.
Yeah.
So it's like that the model minority myth is meant to generalize and make it seem like one is better than the other.
Yeah.
And so
a lot of the systematic things that happen are to create division.
For sure. Exactly.
Because once they come together, they're hard to beat.
For sure.
And that's what it is. And
so that's how the term Asian American even came about. So that didn't even come about until the 60s during the civil rights movement, because two college students in the Bay Area were trying to figure out how do we galvanize the Asian diasporic community here to be better allies and to move in more solidarity with the Black Panther Party. Mm-hmm. So that's how the term Asian American came up, because we were all identifying as just our ethnic group. And so Asian America was meant to not generalize all of those different ethnicities, but to give us one collective voice that we can move under to then be better allies. Yeah. And unfortunately, over the past 70 years, it's been bastardized a little bit.
Yeah.
People this is what happens when smartphones came about. Everything has become more terrible. But it's just not more terrible, but it's become more difficult to get to the heart or the truth of the matter of stuff. Yep. And so that's how the definition of something like that, like Asian American, can be changed.
Yep.
And it will then become part of the narrative, and then that's what we believe is what it is. And so but then narratives are hard to change once they take hold. It's hard to shift that back.
Yeah. So, now I want to go into your podcast.
For sure.
And I want to go into kind of how you decide who comes on your show. Who do you look at, and how do you say, I need that person on my podcast?
That's a great question, because I'm literally getting ready to next week sit down and map out the whole next year's worth of guests. So I have a list, like a spreadsheet of just a bunch of names.
Yep.
And when I first was tinkering around with the idea of, I need to be more involved here in Indianapolis.
Yep.
I just started like following a bunch of people and just like looking.
Yep.
And I just started putting their names in this list. And I've been lucky to get through maybe a quarter of them. But there's a lot of people.
Right,
so
right.
like what really the only thing that was like any requirement for me was like, is something that you are doing interesting to me?
Mm.
And like the point of conversation piece is like the missing piece of the conversation we're already having. So like all I need to know is like, what is it you do? And the core of the conversation hopefully is going to revolve around what you do in this space that you think is like the gap you fill, or what is that missing piece?
Right.
And so for me, it was just like, oh, that's interesting. You have been doing this podcast for a long time. You're not from Indianapolis originally. Okay, that's great. Easy enough for me. Sketch. Stretch is on the list.
That's one of my nicknames.
But Indiana Sports Corps. So I had Sarah Meyer. She's chief of staff at Indiana Sports Corps.
Yeah.
Really interesting person. And I came across her stuff pretty early on and was just like, oh, that'd be somebody really interesting to talk to because of how much how many large scale sporting events we've been doing. And this is just coming off of like February, the All-Star game.
Yep.
So like it really just is probably something that I'm interested in, but there is no parameter.
Yeah.
It's just like, yep, that's interesting to me.
Yeah.
And you're going on the list.
Well, that's the same kind of concept that I have. Like if you're doing something that has an impact somewhere, I'm interested. But then I have to do a little more research to see if I could talk to you.
For sure.
You know, like people don't understand that. Like I'm sure people ask to be on your show all the time.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's a whole nother conversation.
Shout out to those people. We have a whole new series called the Open Door Sessions, which is hopefully going to alleviate some of that.
But
check it out.
We can't have conversations with everybody.
Right.
I'm sure have you had that interview yet where you were really pulling teeth and trying to carry the conversation with questions?
Oh, that's interesting. I have had one of those interviews in Indy. I'm not going to name the name.
I won't either.
I bet if you watched every episode, which shout out to you if you have, you can probably tell. But yeah, I have had one of those. On the John Chi Show, we've had a number of those. But for a lot of those, it's because people are telling their story for the first time.
Yeah.
On Conversation Piece, it's a little bit different because people, I think, are generally media savvy. Not necessarily like interviews. So we just interviewed Andrea Hunley.
Yeah.
And that's the first episode of 2025. I don't know when this is coming out. But she I don't think has been on many podcasts.
Oh, okay.
But she's like she's a literal state senator. Like she gets up and talks in front of people and all that. But it wasn't like, it was just finding the comfort zone with folks.
Yep.
And so like, if I can find the pocket of comfort, like, then it's a wrap.
Well, that's
and so
what
like
makes you good, though.
only one person that I've really been like struggled to like get it, find it, and stay in it.
Yeah.
You know, so.
I think I've had one in that situation where I was asking a question, they'll say yes.
The one word responses are tough.
They're really tough to go by.
Well, that's why the research is important, because hopefully you're asking something that will get them to say something.
You want them to light up. You want to ask a question that makes them light up.
Yeah. Well, so we just talked about this on the holiday episode, but on our conversation with Murdoch, he starts the episode and he's like sitting pretty closed off.
Yep.
But by the end of the episode, or a certain part of the episode, he shifts, you can see. But by the end of the episode, he's pretty opened up.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's like, if the work that I put in behind the scenes to get ready for a conversation can get somebody to be opened up, like that's the reason I called it Conversation Piece, because part of it is like, I want to have a conversation. It's not the interview piece. Like, I'm not just sitting here asking you questions.
Right.
Like, I really want to get to know you. I hope that I've done the work beforehand to do so a little bit. And then we can have a conversation about some of the stuff you've done. So,
where do you see your podcast going in the next 5 years? Do you have a growth chart for yourself?
I need one.
You need one.
But
I know that you probably want to do speaking engagements, right? You want to talk more, probably.
For sure.
and you want to educate, about your journey, like that's kind of a motivational kind of
for sure
journey.
You know what? In 5 years, I actually hope I'm not the host of the show anymore. Mm-hmm. I hope somebody else is taking the reins.
Oh, that would be
would
dope.
love to find another voice.
Yeah.
Who is looking for an opportunity like that here in the city, who wants to have those conversations. I think that there are going to be a lot of things that spin out of the show this year that hopefully continue to push us forward.
Yep.
And that's one of the reasons that I don't have to be the host anymore.
That's good.
So yeah, I think that's kind of what I'm looking at right now is just like, that's far away.
Yeah.
I'm really focused on 2025 because I think we have some cool stuff coming up.
Cool.
And I'm excited to share with people. And I think that is the precursor to some other stuff. So
nice. And in your journey around Indianapolis and learning the city, you've met a lot of people. You've had a lot of people on your podcast, and I'm sure that your upcoming guests will be amazing as well. I'm going to ask you a difficult question.
Uh-oh.
If you could create a Mount Rushmore of Indianapolis.
That is a difficult question.
Who would be on it?
Oh my God! Like anybody that who's ever lived in Indianapolis?
Yes, but that is that's always subjective. It's subjective. And
that's a good question.
You're gonna leave a lot of people off. So just go ahead and think about it for a second. And in the meantime, I'm not gonna tell you mine.
I think the first person I'm going to put on there and who I'm learning more about right now, but I think has to be on there is Madam C.J. Walker.
Okay.
I think her legacy and what she's done and what people are continuing to do with it to carry it forward, I think really is like a testament to the city and like specifically the Black community here in Indianapolis.
Yep.
It's specifically on Indiana Avenue. So I think she's got to be on there for sure. See, so I'm so hesitant because I'm like, I'm a sports guy. So I'm like, man, is like
Reggie.
Peyton up there or Reggie, but they're not from here. So I don't know if that.
But they're still
I
Indianapolis.
know, but I'm also like.
That's Indianapolis.
But for me, I don't know. Yeah,
Peyton got a statue.
You're right. But technically, I'm not even from here. So Peyton does have a statue. I don't know if I can put them
built
both
Lucas
up
Oil.
there. That's a great point.
Yeah.
That's a big impact.
That is.
Maybe Peyton. Okay, Peyton's up there, maybe on the sideline and on like on
Tier
5, 6,
tier
and 7.
two.
Yeah, maybe. Ooh, this is a tough one. So we'll take a lot of time if I'm sitting here thinking.
Yeah,
so,
you got it.
Okay, so I think if you put those two up there, you got to put Tamika up there.
Okay.
Because that's a championship.
Yep.
That's a championship winner.
Okay.
Here in the city. Done a lot for women's sports here.
Yep.
And clearly, which I just really found out about, has one of the most poppin' meetup spots. Tease Me Cafe.
Oh, Tease Me. Yeah.
I did not know about it, and I've had too many meetings there now.
Yeah.
I love it. It's a great place, but like people, that's where movers and shakers are doing stuff. So shout out to Tamika. Okay, I'm going to do that for right now.
Wait, what for? You
I said Peyton, Reggie, Tamika.
Oh, okay.
And
Reggie. I didn't know Reggie was one. Okay.
I feel like there's definitely, I feel like there's more
so
like,
tier two.
So Kurt Vonnegut, people would probably put him up there. Like, that's a really like influential person. He's got a damn library on Indiana Avenue. I mean, I know that there are more people that have done a ton for the city that I'm just not thinking of right now. Yeah. I have like maybe a personal Mount Rushmore.
Yeah. What is your personal Mount Rushmore? So like
of people that I feel like have really impacted me currently to be doing and wanting to do and pursue the city in this way.
Yeah.
So I'm putting Murdoch up there.
Yep.
100%, I think. I'm also putting Samson Livingston up there.
Yeah.
Because I think the way that he goes about cheering, I think him and Murdoch are similar in the ways that they cheerlead, but they do it from different angles.
Yeah,
Murdoch's doing it very, like he does a lot of in front of the camera, but he does a lot behind the scenes too.
He does a lot behind,
I think Samson does a lot behind the scenes, but he does a lot out in front. He's a very boisterous cheerleader that we need.
Yep.
Okay, that's 2. Is that all the heads on Mount Rushmore is just 2? So I would say, I think what Molly and Alan have done with Gang Gang, and I think in a short time, I think they are two people that I view in that way because I would love to create something that has the cultural impact.
Yep.
And it was like butter that really made me want to do something similar for the Asian American community here in Indy.
Oh, okay.
I'm like, this is what they're doing for Black artists here. Like, what are we doing for Asian artists? So so they're definitely up there. I think what Kelly Jones has done with Be Nimble, is really, really inspiring.
Yeah.
People that I think are known quantities to a lot of folks here that I don't think I'm naming anybody new. But for me, I think especially over the last year, as I've just been watching and learning and listening, these are the folks that are like really making an impact. And I do want to shout out Olivia West. I don't think that she would put herself on the Mount Rushmore if I put her up there, but she will be up there by the time that she is done with Indianapolis.
Yeah.
I assure you, she's doing really incredible stuff. And I feel really privileged that she came on Conversation Piece and that we've had a chance to become friends. So
Nice.
I feel like I did not do a good job answering, but I'm just naming influential people.
That's a good list. That's a good list. I like it.
Yeah.
When you're gone, long gone, what do you want your legacy to be?
Are you mad that I didn't put you on there?
No.
Okay.
I'm not from
I was
there.
I was just looked at you and I was like, yeah, but then we said that about Peyton and Reggie, and I'm like, well, shit, now I should have put Stretch up there.
Bro,
I called him Sketch earlier, and that's probably why he's probably real mad about that.
Sketch ain't mad. Sketch ain't mad. No, I don't deserve to be on a, hell no. I haven't even touched what the people in this city does. Like, we talk about Maxie.
Oh, yeah, Maxie. I didn't even say Maxie. Shit, my bad, Maxie.
We talk about B Swift.
B Swift. Bro, I still told you I'm getting canceled.
Well, I mean, we have a lot of people who do...
That's what I mean, though. That's the thing.
Magical things within the city.
Yeah.
To me, they are kind of like trendsetters, and they are people who are the guiding light for people like me who are trying to learn the city.
For sure.
You understand?
For sure. I'm that nebulous age of 34 where a lot of the people I'm connecting with and like I'm looking up to are younger than me.
Yeah.
It's like Samson and Murdoch. Like I say their names and it's like I look at them almost as like they're peers, but like some reverence in the work that they do. And it's like part of it is because I waited 30 years to even start thinking that I could be possibly worthy of doing work like that.
Right.
And so now that I'm doing it, it's like that's just again like kind of where my journey has taken me at this point.
Yep.
But yeah, like B Swift, would love to have him on the show, by the way. And we've been trying to make it happen, but yeah, 100% would be up there.
Yep.
100%. Like that is definitely somebody. Maxie too. Like he's like made that. Well, okay, no, that's not true. So I will shout out somebody who we talk about in his episode, but he, Sir Hart. So he was an individual who had created a studio space for a lot of like early hip hop heads here in Indy.
Yep.
Went to his place and convened there to do stuff. And so like, I remember when I was doing research, like that was a name that I kept seeing come up within Maxie's circle. And then when he shared about Sir Hart's impact on the community here, I'm like, okay, that's a person like that.
Yep.
Wild Style, Pascal. Like B Swift shout on Maxie's album. He's like, as long as Wild Style's doing all the community shit, like Wild Style literally does like what 98% of people, including myself, say that they do in terms of community work. Like he literally is walking out on the streets in negative weather to document what's happening in the city and does not get enough credit for it. And so like he deserves to be on the Mount Rushmore 100%.
Yep. Ladina Brown from
Ladina. Yep.
We named a lot of people.
We can name a lot of people.
We can keep naming people, but I mean, we get the gist that there
100%.
are so many amazing people that could make up any Mount Rushmore.
Yeah. We're the first Rushmore to expand beyond 4.
Yeah.
Fuck 4.
Yeah, 50.
Yeah, 50. I don't know if we can cuss on the
top
show.
50. What was I going to ask you? I was going to ask you, how do you manage your time? Like, you do a lot of things. You have a baby. You're a husband. You have a podcast. You're always out at every event doing interviews. how do you pick what you're going to do? But then how do you find time for the family?
So I pick what I'm going to do based on time with the family.
Around that, okay.
Around the family, specifically around our baby's naps.
Yeah.
And my wife, we've been really lucky that she's not had to work this past year.
Yep.
So she's been able to stay home, which has allowed me then to be able to go do some more stuff.
Dope.
And then she is really cool about, like, if there is a big event happening, like, okay, if you can, like, something's happening, yeah, obviously go get it.
Yep.
But I'm learning how to manage my time still.
Good.
Calendars are really good. I use my reminders app a lot. I will say a lot of, like, kind of fly by the seat of our pants a little bit with the show sometimes, but I think we're operationalizing in a good way.
Do you have an assistant?
I do not.
I know.
I've had many people ask me.
Don't you want one, though? Don't you want one?
Sometimes I think that I do, and then I think you are not doing enough that requires you to have an assistant.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that is...
But your life would definitely be easier with one.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that is, like, hustle culture in my brain telling me that, or if it's, like, true, so.
I feel the same. Because I'm not doing enough.
That's how I feel.
I'm not doing enough.
That's how I feel.
But
my wife would probably say that I'm doing too much.
Yeah.
But...
Yeah. How has your impact in the community or even being on your podcast changed you? How have you changed in the last 4 years?
Oh, shit. I've changed a lot. Well, first, the biggest change is, like, I just embracing my whole self, and I've just leaned into being a more whole, or the most whole version of me. Yeah. Whether that's always putting the pieces together, but, just like, that's been the biggest change for sure. I started therapy about almost 2 years ago. That has helped me a lot with that.
Yeah.
But the biggest change is literally just embracing all the parts of myself that I refused to embrace before.
Yep.
And without that, I see I'm a rambler. I apologize. That's been the biggest change.
Okay.
Like, I've changed in many, many ways. But that's been the biggest and most, I think, impactful, profound, and on display on the daily.
Okay. That's good. On John Shee, the podcast, I was listening. And
hey, real quick, I appreciate you pronouncing the show name correctly, because a lot of people don't.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I appreciate that.
Absolutely. I'm glad I did. On that show, it was a mention of a rap career.
Oh, shit. Okay.
I really want to know or hear a bar. Give us like 8 bars.
I don't know if I could give you 8 bars.
What was your rap name?
All right, so I knew this was eventually going to come up being in Indianapolis, because I did it here for probably, I'd say, 10 years. I did not perform a lot, but I wrote and released a lot of music.
Okay.
I was a rapper. When I first started doing, I guess I was in college at Purdue at the time. It was just like a fun thing.
Okay.
And then it became real.
Yep.
Because I was like, oh, I love doing this.
Yep.
And then I was in class, was not taking notes. I was writing lyrics in notebooks.
Okay.
I literally dropped out of college because I was obsessed. Like, that was one of the reasons. Sorry to my parents. Well, okay.
What was your name?
My name. Yeah,
what was the name?
Okay,
Sketch?
so for a long time, it's always just been my name. So I just went by straight my Patrick Armstrong, the moniker.
Okay.
When I first started, my name was Pat the Prodigy. That was the name I was going by.
Yes, you are.
About a year in, I dropped the Prodigy because I felt it was disrespectful to Mobb Deep.
So you just
Prodigy
became Project Pat?
Yes. So a lot of people call me Project Pat, but I did not ever use that name because out of respect. But yeah, so I was Patrick Armstrong for a long time. Pat Armstrong. I have a.
Come on.
At one point, I had my name was P with the @ symbol. Like, that was pretty. That's pretty.
P-at.
Yeah, I have that in my Apple Music still. It's still there. But yes, that is
Prodigy.
It's a for real thing. You can go on SoundCloud right now and find a lot of my music still up there.
Okay, all right. I didn't know how froggy you was.
When I moved to San Diego, I haven't done it in a long time. I'll do it in my car and in my home. I was actually freestyling a little bit earlier today to my kid.
Well, I mean, You can give us 8. You can give us 8 of your written stuff. You can give us 8.
I don't know that I can. Maybe. How much more of this interview is left? We'll see.
Hey, we got a little bit of time. We got a little time.
We'll see.
Maybe
if John brings the beat over and then
we should have had drinks.
Yeah, maybe that's that's behind the paywall.
Yeah, there we go.
I'll tell you this. If we do a crossover episode that's live at like a dinner or something, I will.
Let's do that.
If we do that, I will.
Okay.
I'll spit some bars.
Okay. Yeah, we can do a black tie event.
All right. It doesn't have to be black tie.
I want it to be black tie. I want it to be black tie.
Can we do 50% black tie, 50% free tickets?
Free to the community.
Yeah.
Corporate sponsorship, free to the community.
Oh, I actually did not think that we might talk about that. So that's my bad.
So I'm glad that you weren't ready.
That's for real though. Check it out. SoundCloud.
Okay. SoundCloud, Project Pat the Prodigy.
Actually, okay. I did have a name. Patrick Isn't Real. It was my Twitter handle for a long time, and I used
Patrick
that
Isn't Real?
Yeah, as a rap moniker for a while.
Okay.
I think I released like 2 or 3 projects under that name, maybe.
Okay, nice. How would you define success?
So we are at the end of the podcast.
No, we're not at the end because I do have more for you. I do have more. So we are. See that is a student. That's a student of the Follow the Money podcast. He knows that when I ask that question, we're winding it up. Yeah. And it's almost time to be done. But not quite.
Not quite. How do I define success? I think success for me, simply for me, is just getting to the next day, to be honest, right now. I'll say parenthood at 10 months old has been taking a lot out of me.
Yep.
And I feel like just getting to the next goal, which is the next day, feels like a lot of success to me.
Yep.
For me, like success is really simple. I've tried to get away from like perfectionist mindsets and like really overworking and like material success for the podcast. And John knows this, but my version of successful interview or conversation is if the guest says, that was a great question. If I can get one of those, that's a win. Right. Because it shows, I feel like to me, it just says, okay, I think you did your work. Yep. And I would love to get it on every question, but I feel like that might be a little infeasible.
Yep.
But for me, I think success is simple. And I find success in a lot of like the simple things, especially right now as a new parent. I think it's like shrank my world down. So it's really pulled in what it means to win, I think. But I think it sets me up to think big when I think about winning as a community and what success looks like as a community. Yeah. And so success as a community, that's I think a whole nother episode, but it starts here with the small stuff. So for me, success is just, is it tomorrow yet? Great. And I'm here.
You
awesome.
made it.
I made it.
Yeah, that's what's up. I did have a question that I wanted to ask you as it pertains to our creative community. If you could describe it, if you could take a moment to describe the creative community in Indianapolis as it applies to you, how would you describe it to someone?
As it applies to me?
Like how do you fit in? Like if you were to describe the creative community, because it consists of podcasters, artists, musicians, community workers, food, all that. Like, so if you could describe it, how would you describe it?
I would describe the creative community here as really vibrant. Mm-hmm. I think vibrant and under-resourced. So I think play both sides of the coin, to be honest. I think what I've discovered just over the last year of doing the show and being heavily focused on Indianapolis is just how many people are doing a lot of different stuff, even in the same industry, whether it's like photography and videography, or it's podcasting, or it's food, like all of the different things that are happening here. It's a lot. Yep. And honestly, we talked about like not being able to talk to everybody who wants to come on the show. Like there's so much happening that if I was just solely focused on the creative community, still couldn't cover it all.
Right.
Because there are so many people doing stuff and every one of those people has their own story, which I think makes it super vibrant. So we did a series called Community and Conversation where we're going to events this summer and highlighting the people behind the scenes who help bring these events to life in the city. And when we covered Epicurean Indy, we were talking about our friend Yusuf earlier. Yep. And that was one of the things that I realized doing that event was just like how many more people particularly from immigrant communities, exist here in Indy,
Right.
and are like actively trying to be involved in things like this to show their work, whether it's art, whether it's food or culinary, like lots of different stuff. Yeah. And so I think we get very stereotyped as just Indiana for a lot of people. And Hal Carroll shared this on the show. He's like, a lot of people even in Indiana don't have an opinion about Indianapolis. And I think when you break that down to the creative community, it's like, for me and from where I'm standing, like it's just super, super vibrant. And if we were to properly resource these people and the organizations that operate in the space, I think we would have a chance to play on bigger stages that I think we want to play on,
Right.
but we are maybe not doing so in the way that we could.
Yeah. Okay. Great answer.
Thanks.
I'm very intentional, and I can sometimes lose my way in being very diverse with my guests.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Same.
Like
Yes,
I look at my
100%.
list and I was like, I don't have something. I don't have. I'm missing. And I look at your list of guests and I say that you look very intentional about being all over the map with who you have on.
Thank you.
Yes, that's super dope about that. And I'm just taking this time to give you your flowers.
Oh, thanks.
Because I think it's really nice for someone like you to set the bar high for a person like myself who's been doing this for a long time. And I look at you and I appreciate the quality of work that you do. I appreciate the quality of person that you are. And I am thankful that I get to share this community with you.
Thank you. It was very nice of you to say. I appreciate that.
I wanted to give you your flowers because I didn't get a chance on your show to do that because I was crying talking about J.O. Yeah, but I mean, I think it's important that you know that you are appreciated, that you are being looked at, that you are someone that holds a torch in this community, and we do follow you.
I appreciate that. That means a lot. Yeah. Honestly, that means a lot.
Absolutely.
For sure. Especially as we get ready to close the year. And I'm thinking about the intentionality behind the guests and like planning this list out and like everything that we're trying to do. That means a lot. Thank you.
Good. So now I have a thing that you don't know about because I haven't did this yet.
Nice.
But this is called This or That.
Okay.
This is a segment where I will say a few things. You have to pick one or the other.
All right.
It's kind of like Drink Champs.
Sure.
But if you pick, then I donate $10 for each question that you actually pick.
Okay.
And if you don't pick, because some of them you might not want to pick.
Okay. So for each one I pick, you donate.
I donate if you pick.
Okay.
If you don't pick, I don't donate.
Okay.
And you'll see why.
Okay. All right, I like breaking into new segments. Let's
we're
do
going
it.
to start easy. Pacers or Colts?
Pacers.
Okay. We're going to go nap or nothing or we don't run.
Oh. Oh my God. I might have to donate $10 to the opposite one.
Okay.
Oh fuck. That's tough. I can't pick. I'm not picking. I'm gonna donate $10 to both of them.
Okay.
That's a good one. That was a good one.
All right, it gets worse. Nike or Adidas?
Nike.
Okay. A cabin in the woods or a cabana on the beach?
Oh shit. Cabin in the woods.
Cabin
Sorry to my wife.
Okay. L.A. or New York?
New York.
New York. Downtown Nap or Bra Ripple?
Oh, that's a tough one too. Downtown.
Tacos or burritos?
Tacos.
Okay, this is a good one. Losers to Obama. Mitt Romney or John McCain?
Oh man, that's funny. I'm going to say Mitt Romney simply because he is from Utah and my sister's husband is from Utah. Shout out to my wife again.
His husband is from Utah.
Oh
You're
my
gonna
God.
hear first.
Heard it here first.
All right. The Rock or Stone Cold?
Ooh. I'm going with The Rock. That's actually a tough one.
Okay.
I kind of want to say Stone Cold, but I'm going to say The Rock.
Richard Pryor or Eddie Murphy?
I'm going to go Eddie because I grew up with more Eddie than Richard Pryor.
Yep. Ooh, this is a good one. Jackie Chan or Jet Li?
Oh my God. All right, I'm going to say Jet Li. I like more of his movies.
Yep.
I did like Jackie Chan movies. I love the Jackie Chan Adventures cartoon show.
Yep.
But I also, just real quick tying it all together, never saw myself in either of those two. Just liked them for their movies, not because they were Asian.
Okay. Well, yeah. Well,
yeah.
You saw it how I saw it.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Right. Okay. This is the last one.
I don't think I ever laughed like that either.
All right. Mike Lee or John Overton?
Oh, my God.
And this one you have to choose now.
That's tough. I can't choose on that one. I'll donate $10 to them both, too. I think I owe John a check, and I didn't bring my book bag. My bad, John.
I knew I'd get you on that one. I knew I'd get you on that one. Yeah. That's it. That was this or that.
Zap or nothing or we don't run is that's the toughest one.
I thought that would be a tough one, too.
That's a tough one. Shout out to them both.
Shout out to them both.
Mike GP and Maxie. Shout out to them both.
Man, I am super happy that you came by. 100%. I hope that you had a good time.
Loved it.
Good. And again, please continue to do it how you do it. Not just to do it, but do it how you do it. I appreciate you. I appreciate everyone who tuned into this episode to listen. Please follow dmoney.com. How can I find you on socials?
Yep. Personal at Patrick in the World, the podcast at John Cheese Show, and at Conversation Peace Pod, conversationpeacepod.com for everything else with the show. We got merch out now too, so check that out. I am Sketch. And we are out. I did call you Sketch. I did say that.